So yes, I want to talk about the church. Uh, with that, they talk about the church, the issues that they don't deal with when it comes to marriage and sex. I think there's like a taboo in the church when it comes to sex. Um, I've been in church mostly all my life. I've never heard anyone, have any classes to talk to married people about sex, or even, before you get married, what do you do when it comes to sex, other than, it's wrong, it's fornication, you have sex before marriage, you're going to hell. That's all I heard. But there's no real in-depth conversation about it, that once you get married, you know, because God instituted sex within the marriage, and God honors that in marriage. So I think the church should actually talk about that, because we feel too religious when they're in their marriage, because they're stuck, because the church has this stigma on sex. Now I'm married to my spouse, and now I'm like limited. So I want to talk about that, because I think it's very important that we emphasize that God institutes sex within the confound of marriage, not outside of marriage, but in marriage. And when God ordained sex in marriage, then the Bible tells us that it's honorable. The marriage bed is undefilable. So if it's undefilable, then it's okay. But I find that a lot of times people that are believers struggle in that area. And so I just I want to talk about that, and from your perspective as a woman, you know, why is it that it's such a struggle when God has given the husband and wife the green light?
Right. I want to say this. I do totally agree with you. The church do not talk about that, and it is very important, because I think the church is a sensitive topic, for
Yes.
one, and it sounds like, I guess, like,
Maybe promoting it.
right, but if God designed sex for marriage,
Right.
why are we afraid to talk about it when it's a gift God given the marriage?
Correct.
Okay, so I think the church have gave it to the world,
Right.
and they let the world take over, and it became the world. Sex became for the worldly people, and it's not for the worldly people. The world is just corrupted, whether it's pornography and all
Right.
these things.
Right.
But God designed it. It's a beautiful thing, and the church should be talking about it, because it's made for mainly really the church.
Right.
Because the marriage is church, the
Right.
church, and God, Christ, in the church.
Right.
And so we want to touch on how healthy, sex is
Mhm.
in the marriage,
Right.
what the way it's supposed to be,
Right.
because a lot of people get married with the ideal, having the wrong mindset about marriage.
Yes.
And they come in with wanting to, it's their own sexual desires,
Right.
and all about what pleases them. And I think that needs to be touched on for marriages, because that's one of the problems in marriages.
Mhm.
Whether it's the one on the woman's end or the man's end, and I think it starts with the perspective.
Right. Right. It does. It does start with the perspective of how I view this, because sometimes we can have an obscured view, and it hinders the growth of the marriage in that area. Because for whatever religious background they come from, they become to be the same thing over and over. So it becomes monotonous, because they continue to do the same thing over and over, expecting growth, expecting something different. But you know, that's why, like, oh, I'm bored. Oh, this or that, because there is no fire. It's like going through the motions, because for whatever reason, they like you said, they're different perspectives, so they limit themselves when it comes to husband and wife. They limit themselves, and they shouldn't. It shouldn't be no limit.
Yeah, because whether it's the wife doesn't have a healthy appetite for it, and the man does, or he's all about himself, sexually, or the woman, when he's ready for it, she's not. All those different things
Right.
needs to be talked about
Right.
because, tension,
Right.
it becomes tension
Right.
at that point.
Right.
And when they not no longer having a healthy sex life, then that's when you see things in a marriage falling apart.
Right.
Because even though that shouldn't be important, God designed it to bring connection.
Right.
And so when you lose that, when you stop doing that, connecting in an intimate way
Right.
in
Right.
the marriage,
Right.
yes, Satan can come in, and even Paul talked about that, So you want it, it's important that it is healthy.
Correct.
And that it's a mutual agreement.
Right.
And I mean, a healthy mutual agreement, because you got men that feel like whenever they want it, however they want it, it is some men that think it's all about them,
Right.
Their sexual gratification.
Correct.
And then you got women, they hardly never feel like it.
Right.
Or, but then you got women that had kids, going through postpartum, just had a baby, whatever, stuff like that. So there's different things that can hinder the healthy sex life. But it's important, I think, to talk about these things, and the church be able to talk about these
Right.
things, and they have counseling classes for these things.
Right.
To see where the husband and wife stand when it comes to that.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
you hear a lot of men complaining about, their sexual needs not being satisfied. She's always tired, this and that, and we afraid to talk about these things because it's too personal.
Mm-hmm.
And if we opened up the church to that, to be able to counsel, not just counseling them on their problems, but to teach them what the healthy sex life is in the marriage.
Should be, right. Exactly. And that's the thing about it. Like you said, it should be healthy. And when it become unhealthy, I believe that's when strife and, all type of disagreements comes. It just opens the door for the enemy. And then sex in marriage should be selfless and not selfish.
Very selfish.
It should be, so it's not about what I get out of it. It's about what my wife gets out of it. And then it's not about for the wife, it's not what she gets out of it, but what my husband gets out. So if they have that mindset that I'm pleasing my spouse and we pleasing each other, then that builds a healthy relationship between the two. But when one is only worried about their own self gratification, then that becomes the problem, because now what is not being fulfilled. So if I feel unfulfilled, now I got to find another vice or another something to fulfill that void. And I'm saying this because husbands have to understand that if you're selfish, then you will pay the price of being selfish, because you have to be selfless to make sure that you're taking care of what you need to take care of for your spouse. That's why God has instituted this for the husband, one man, one wife, one man, one woman, husband and wife, together to enjoy that pleasure. Because if not, then your relationship will be contentious. You would always be at odds with each other, because the stressors have been built up. And yes, I believe the only reason why women feel like, oh, I got a headache, or I don't feel like it, is because something that we didn't do beforehand. We didn't prepare her beforehand. In other words, that we think it's not like a car, you just get up and turn the key and it goes. No, some things have to be warmed up. Some things you just got to, warm it up before you can actually get in motion. So when we neglect those things, then we get those, because they already know what the outcome is, and it's not pleasing for her, because in some way she feel like she may have gotten the short end of the matter. And we as men have to always ensure that our spouse don't feel like she's getting the short end of the matter.
Yes, it needs to be a mutual understanding and have those talks, but both parties understanding what each other wants and what
Right.
each other needs,
Right.
getting to know each other body.
Right.
And like you said, that woman's concern is when I'm coming in, we coming together, I'm gonna do what
Right.
works for you,
Right.
and you're gonna do what works for
Correct.
me. And we're connecting to exchange one another.
Correct.
And so it's just very important that, I feel like that they married couples should be able to talk about that.
Sure.
And okay, you don't have time right now, or you busy, can we work by the end of the night? Can
Yeah,
that be done?
exactly.
But the man got to understand, because the woman is, the one that's taking care of the home while
Sure.
he works. There's priorities
Right.
and duties, things she needs to take care of, get the kids ready,
Right.
whatever she has to take care of the home.
Right.
And she can be tired at the end of
Of
the day,
course.
just like the man when he goes
course.
to work and get tired. But I believe it's important that by the end of the day, we can say, okay, that can be done.
Right.
Just
Exactly.
let me get these things out
Right.
the way.
Right.
And instead of the woman just putting the man off day after day, because then it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important the woman make room for him to say, okay, give me a few hours, and then if you can wait for me later on
Right.
tonight when the house quiet, we all settled, we shower, we take care, we eat all that out the
Right.
way, then,
Right. Or the man can say, the husband can say, you know what, honey, what can I do to help you? And that help. I think that when men go, put themselves in a selfless position, like, honey, what can I do to help you? I think the woman look at that, okay, you know what? That relieves some of my stress. That relieves some of my worry. Hey, well, if we have kids, okay, can you take care of the kids, and get them to bed, get to the homework, whatever it may be, to lighten up the load on both ends. I think that, it should be done. But when the marriage in that area is targeted, when the enemy targets that part of the marriage, I believe, it breaks it down, because now not only is the husband frustrated, now the wife is frustrated because, for whatever reason, he's wanting it and she's not in the mood. So now the enemy started to play, okay, maybe she's got somebody else. Maybe this, all these things may come into the person's mind, because even though the woman could be legitimately tired, but because of the enemy's so subtleness, like maybe she's cheating on me. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe she don't love me no more. So, and 9 times out of 10, it's not even that. It's just, maybe you just need to help out a little bit more.
If she's tired, she might need you to help her
Yeah.
with the burden.
Yeah.
And then she'll have the time for you.
Exactly.
I agree. It always sometimes the man is just having the woman. I worked, I did my part,
Right.
going to work. Now I'm gonna come home and relax. And he wondered why she don't got time for him.
Exactly.
Because even though you did your part, y'all share this home, and you're supposed to be in unity as a team
Right.
at home. And so it's important to get to a place of understanding that, okay, what can I do to help you? What can I do to make you less tired?
Right.
Is there something that you would want me to do?
Right. Exactly.
And it really is. It makes a woman happy
Of
for a
course.
man to just get up and do
Well, of
things
course.
that he knows needs to be done.
Of course.
That really is attracted to women. The wife, when the man just decide, okay, I'm gonna just clean up.
Right.
Before she wake up, I'm gonna get the house in order on the weekend. I'm gonna make her breakfast and everything.
Right.
And it should go both ways. I think the marriage should be a mutual thing.
Of course.
Loving one another, helping one another, being understanding. And, I think that would make the connection more easier between husband and wife when it comes to intimacy.
Right, right, exactly, and that's true. It's like a team. Any team have players, and they know their position. So and that makes the team go in the right direction to try to win the game. And that's the thing about it, is that husband and wife, we're striving to be winners. We're not. I don't think anyone goes into marriage and say, okay, I want a divorce. I think because over things that has happened, the neglect in some areas has happened, causes these doors to open. But I think if you work together and identify these situations early, then they can be caught early. But the thing is, people wait too long. When they don't talk about it. They wait too long till the problem gets so. It's like a fire. It starts out small, and they keep letting it burn and burn, and then now we have this 5 alarm fire, and you were trying to extinguish it, and it's just too big to put out. But if we got help in the beginning, when we start having the problems, then we could have extinguished the fire early. And I think sometimes that, you know, whether it's pride, whether it's, oh, I don't need to, no counseling, or I don't need this or that, but we do, because no one person has all the answers. No one person has mastered a relationship. It's because of a collective of witnesses we're able to navigate through the relationship, because the advice of those who've already been through that, or has already gone past that, can help those who are at that threshold. Yeah.
So when we talk about, intimacy, say the man likes, to do it a certain way, and the woman doesn't. How do you go about that? Because you got women that's uncomfortable with that. You got some people with the mindset that, oh, that's forbidden. I can't, we shouldn't do that. I don't feel right. It feels inappropriate. How do you handle, the differences that you might not be sexually compatible as a married couple, because the husband, whether it's his sex drive, whether it's how he wants to do it, or the woman, how do you think married couples should go about
Well, first of all, I think that should be a conversation that they should have, and with the understanding that what we decide to do in our marital bedroom, it's not bad, because I have not read anything in the Bible yet that condemns what one married couple, male and female, do in their bedroom. So if if they decide that, this is it, I'm not saying bring outside people into the, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when the husband and wife talk about their differences and their different experiences or whatever they may have to make their sex life work, then that's on them. I don't believe God would intervene in that, because it is their choice, because that's why God instituted for marriage, for procreation, and for the enjoyment of the husband and wife. So why would God restrict that if he's given to us freely in that area under the law of marriage? Meaning that I've come before God and committed myself to this woman, and this woman committed herself to this man before God. And then the witnesses of people to see what God has brought together. So it shouldn't be an issue uh, for what they decide to do. Now, you said, well, one person may look at this particular situation different than the other. What do you do? Well, my thing is that we have to be able to work through this, because sometimes people experiences, that's why, God forbid premarital sex, because when you do that, you come with other experience and expectations. So when you don't, you navigate and you learn together as husband and wife, and you explore together as husband and wife, to what she likes, what he likes, what she don't like, what he don't like. So that makes things better. But now here you are married to the person, and the guy wants to do things this way and she wants to do things like, oh, I'm not comfortable with that. My thought on that is that, okay, we talk about it until you're comfortable in that area, then I think we'll stay away from that. And that's something that one would have to compromise with if they truly love the person and understands that I'm not there yet. Let us build that to that, because sometimes people, can be in a mindset where it's like, wow, overwhelming, and one party may not, like I said, be there yet. So communication, and be able to work through that with patience. It may not be that season for that, and until she gets comfortable with that, then you would have to probably find an alternative,
Yes, I think the question should be, why is she uncomfortable? Like,
Right.
Asking her,
Right.
what is making you uncomfortable
Right.
with doing it this
Right.
way?
Right. Exactly.
Because it could be her really not comfortable, when it comes to intercourse. She
Sure.
might not be comfortable in
Right.
that way.
Sure.
So you want to know, is you uncomfortable with it, in general, or is it something, is a physical
Right.
uncomfortable?
Sure. And trauma could be a part of that. Things can happen in her life unwillingly, could cause those, you know, uh, barriers. So yeah, so you're absolutely right. You definitely need to want to have a conversation. What part of it makes you uncomfortable? And then something like, well, you know, I grew up in a church, and we see now we brought the religious part into the bedroom, where God has already separated that, because He said it was undefilable. So whatever the husband and wife does in the bedroom, then is not charged to the church. It's just to the husband and wife.
So, if, say, they don't come to those terms, that she's, he or she chooses to say, well, I like it, and they stuck in their ways on
Mhm.
it, because you have couples, married couples like that.
Right.
This is what I like,
Right.
and they'll argue about it.
Sure.
The differences, not being sexually compatible, and both of them decide to be stuck in their ways
Sure.
about it. How do they go about that? Because then that leads at some point to straining the marriage.
Well, sure. So you can like it a certain way, but what's wrong with trying something new also? You can incorporate what you like normally and what you want to experiment with. But see, the thing is, I think that sometimes we just get so religious that we forget that God has given the husband and wife that pleasure, that thing that we call sex in marriage, uh, whatever fantasy they consider themselves to have, okay, because it's not going against God's law, because you're operating in the confines of the umbrella of marriage. And so if you're married, it's like you have the insurance, as one pastor would say. You have the license now. Like when you get licensed to drive, you shouldn't be driving without license, right? So if you get caught driving without license, then you'll get a ticket or possibly go to jail. Well, you drive without license, you can get possibly unwanted pregnancy, unwanted diseases, all these things. So once you get the license to the marriage part of it, now you're free to drive. But some people's like, okay, well, yeah, you have license, but you still got to drive with caution. You still got to obey the laws of the land driving. Yes, that is true. However, the law doesn't give a provision where if you go in this area, there's no penalty. Where God says in this area of marriage, there's no penalty. There's no defile here. Nothing is defiled in here once you enter this covenant between you two and y'all in your marital bed. So in that retrospect, God has given you the license as one pastor said, to kill. You have the license to do, whatever it is that you guys decide to do. Now, if you come into the limit where, I was raised this certain way, and we were taught not to do X, Y, Z. I understand that, but if we really search the scripture and really dig into that passage where people kind of hang their hat on, that you'll see where God has given the husband and wife free reign in those areas.
Right, and I understand that. What my question is, people that, well, husband and wife, that's not sexually compatible, and women and men tend to be like night and day, hot and cold, never on like the same rhythm all the time. How do you go about that? Because it's like y'all never on the same. The drive is never the same. That's when the fire burns out. So we have to work at keeping reciprocating, and I think that's what's important is reciprocating to keep the fire burning.